Madison is a star soccer player, and she had a lot going for her. Whenever she found out she was pregnant, she was crushed. She went to Planned Parenthood and got the abortion pill, hoping to quietly terminate her pregnancy without her boyfriend or father finding out. After days of bleeding and cramps so severe she couldn't walk, she reluctantly told her dad. He rushed her to the emergency room, but unfortunately it was too late and she died the next day. My bill requiring parental consent before terminating a pregnancy would ideally prevent Holly's situation from happening. If parents are aware of the medical operations their children go through, they're able to look out for dangerous symptoms and ideally save their children's lives. Teenagers aren't yet allowed to have any other medical procedure done. They're not even allowed to get abortion at school, or at Tylenol at school, if they're able to undergo a procedure which seriously injures or kills more than 200,000 women a year. Not only do abortions have physical effects, but they have mental effects too. Teenagers that get abortions are 6 times more likely to commit suicide and 3 times more likely to have drug and alcohol abuse. You and I both know teenagers don't always consider the consequences for their actions. Abortion may seem like a good idea at the time, but it doesn't just last 5 minutes. It lasts a lifetime if any wonder. Thank you. I yield to the rest of my time for closing.
Thank you. The author is yielding 57 seconds to her closing. We'll now move along to interrogation, starting with the Surgeon General.
Thank you. I was wondering the ways that consent could be waived because starting on line 23 of your bill, it says consent is not waived if, and it gives a list of ways that consent is not waived. What are the ways in which consent can be waived?
That is a good question because I do not know that not was in there. So,
Well, could you explain? I imagine it's a typo.
it is a typo.
The ways in which consent is waived.
Consent can be waived if, for A, it's a medical emergency and they just call the duty judge who's on all the time, and so he can just give them, if they have a reason for obviously her life, any other medical emergency they may have is up to the doctor's discretion. They call the duty judge and he grants them permission. Or B, if the minor's married, they're able to bring their marriage certificate to the physician sees this and can in turn give them their abortion. And then C, they're able to go through the judicial bypass system, which the judge can take the following A through G into consideration, which I can read that for those of y'all. It's okay.
But so if it's an emergency, they still need a judge to waive consent.
Yes, but it's like a phone call. Like it's not like they have to go to the court and stuff. The duty judge is on, like even Christmas, not all the time they have the duty judge phone on, so they literally just call him.
And court proceedings may take several months for them to.
48 hours is the longest that they can take for judicial bypass proceedings.
For Part C, waiving consent. Okay, all right, thank you.
What if a minor has different political and religious views of their parents? I understand that they can go through this consent form, but it still requires an additional 48 hours. So what could they do? If
Well, their only option is to go through the judicial bypass system, which if you take it into consideration, if they've been considering it for a long time, 48 hours, yes, it could be a long time, but if they know that if they look into their details and know that this is an option for them, 48 hours isn't really that long, because it's only 2 days. And one of the things is their ability to understand and explain what's happening. So if they know and they're able to get an abortion and know what they want, then the judge will see that and he will let them grant their abortion.
Thank you.
Are you aware of the Supreme Court case? I'm blanking on the name right now, but it decided that the father of the child and the parents of the woman getting an abortion should not be required to give consent due to the fact that that gives a third-party veto on the decision. Can you please explain how your bill does not go against that decision?
Well, I was not aware of that court case, but because of that, I feel like the decision is, with giving the judicial bypass option, gives them the decision still up to them, because then the judge is able to determine. And I know the judge could be considered a third party, but it's anonymous.
Are you aware of the fact that if an abortion does not have if, for example, because of the age of viability, if it takes longer for the judge to decide whether or not the person should get an abortion without parental consent, it could hit the age of viability and it would be considered murder and they're no longer allowed to get an abortion?
Well, the age that the first trimester is, I think, I believe is what you're, whenever you're.
Viability is 26 or 28 weeks.
Okay, 26 or 28 weeks. Well, the judge isn't allowed to. They have to process it within 48 hours. If he were to appeal it, I don't know exactly how long that would take, but the judge should, if you're able to leave the abortion, the judge should, if we elect the judge, he should be able to, we should trust him with the decision.
Thank you.
An accurate decision.
What could be some possible consequences of failure to notify your parents of a pregnancy that has not been terminated?
You would have to have the baby, I guess.
But there are possible risks associated with that as well, correct?
Yes.
All risks?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Pass.
Pass.
Are there any other states that have bills, laws sort of like this?
Yes, there are 24 other states, I can read them, or.
Do you have the statistic on how many illegal abortions are then conducted after it was made?
Well, we can't really know that because we can't do the illegal abortions in.
Okay, thank you.
But do you think that this would promote the idea of backstreet abortions?
Yes and no. The way why I would say yes is because that's the thought that comes into everybody's mind of yes, if you don't want to tell your parents, then you would. But the girls who hopefully they're smart enough to know if they just talk to their parents or go to the judge, then it opens up the door for their parents to have a communication because like in the situation Holly in my bill, if she would just talk to her dad, I'm sure her dad would rather have her have alive and a baby than be dead right now. So hopefully that would open the door to the thing, to the communication between the parents and the child, and they can not have backstreet abortion.
You said that this Holly girl went to Planned Parenthood, correct? During Planned Parenthood abortions, are they, do you know the current proceedings of like health checks and such before they get an abortion?
For the girls or for the
For the girls, like, do they check them whether or not they're ready to have an abortion? Or do they just do abortions?
I do not believe so. I mean, they do, I don't know exactly how it works, but I don't think they like do a physical or anything to the girls, if that's what you mean.
So, do you believe that your bill should decide for every single teenage girl in the state of Florida that their parents, a third party, should decide what should happen to her body?
I believe that the girls should take that into consideration because if the child is under 18, whenever the parents had them, they made the choice for them to take care of the child up to 18 years because they knew that would be their child.
Even if the age of consent is lower than 18?
Wait, can you restate your question?
Even if the age of consent is lower than 18, even the parents should have control over if they can get an abortion.
What do you mean the age of
The
consent?
age of consent to have sex without it.
Oh, I feel because that is the child's decision and the parent, you can have, there's certain cases, I mean, I know that there's like Romeo and Juliet laws and such, but the parent has some way of how they have, if it's like, you know, I can't think of the word right now, but non-consensual is the word, but the parents can take that upon themselves to do that. So yes, the child is still their responsibility, but the judicial bypass system is known as being easy and fast and anonymous and
Thank you.
Any questions?
In Texas, a few weeks ago, there was a case where the parents were actually forcing the daughter to get an abortion. Do you know what the current laws in Florida are about that?
about forcing the child to get an
Yes.
abortion.
It was originally overturned, I'm just asking, I have the wrong question or.
I mean, I don't know exactly if there are laws about forcing you to get an abortion, because, I mean, I guess that would be the case of the child to go and report that if they did not want to.
Isn't a third party forcing a child to get an abortion relatively the same as getting consent to get an abortion?
I don't think that's the same because one's the child's decision. And so this is saying one's forcing them to get it, and that's taking the rights away from the child to make their own decisions. This one is just checking their decisions. It's kind of like the checks and balances.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, what if with your law, do you believe that a parent should be able to force their child to get an abortion?
Not at all.
So, consequently, in Texas, it was decided since the age of consent was 16 or 17 in that state, and you have to have parental consent to get an abortion. The argument was that since you have to have parental consent to get an abortion, you should have parental consent to not get an abortion. So, will that be the same with this law? If it's the same in Texas?
the child would have to agree to get an abortion because they could say no.
Thank you.
If you believe that a parent should not force their child to not get an abortion or to get an abortion, is that what you stated?
Well, I believe, yes, they shouldn't force their child.
Okay, so do you believe that a child should be able to go to their parents and say that they want to get an abortion and have their parents support them? Or do you believe that the parents, if they feel that they should interfere with that, do you believe they should interfere with that?
I believe that's up to the role of parenting, how they want to parent their child. As the government, we can't tell them how to parent their child because that's not our position. But I feel like one thing is the child going up to the parent asking for help or asking for support or asking for anything, you know. But the other thing is the parent kind of intervening, and that's their job as parenting, whether you believe that's their job or not. That's where we give it to the Floridians to make that decision.
Okay, thank you.
The Supreme Court ruled that you should not have to go through undue burden to have an abortion. Do you find a court trial with circuit court waiving consent and not to be an undue burden?
I don't believe so, only because I'm very familiar with the court process. And all you would do is you would go up to a clerk and there's a judge. It's not you would go in front of the whole trial, you wouldn't do it, it's not stressful. It's the judge honestly just sits down with the girl and they figure out, you know, he like talks to her and asks her questions and decides. So it's not like a stressful thing. It's not like her name is published all over the newspaper. It's not anything like that because no one else knows about him.
So it's not stressful to have to explain why you don't go with your parents' decisions?
I wouldn't believe so.
So I assume you're aware of the case of Roe v. Wade. Are you aware of all 6 decisions in Roe v. Wade?
All 6? No.
Okay, there are 6 decisions, and one of them is the fact that an abortion should be allowed because a woman, in any case where a woman has emotional instability due to the pregnancy, meaning that she does not feel she can handle the pregnancy. So if this decision, if Roe v. Wade decided that anyone should get an abortion if they have emotional instability, why should a parent influence that?
The parent, they can say no. And then if she goes to the judge in G, it says the judge is able to, on their ability to understand and explain the medical risk of terminating the pregnancy and apply that to her understanding.
And what if the judge is biased?
The judge is biased and she can appeal it. That might take longer, but if we elect the judges, they shouldn't be biased.
And then if she appeals it, what if it's age liability?
Then
Thank you.
Why did you choose this legislation as opposed to legislation requiring that a child simply inform their parents of their decision?
because we already have, well, we have parental notification where they have to call home and tell them.
All right, thank you. Time is lapsed for questioning, and we will now revert to pro-con debate from the Directors of Legislative Affairs. I will now recognize the Director in favor of this legislation. Director Rodriguez, please approach the speaker's wall. You're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Governor. As someone who believes in equal parental protection rights, I strongly support this legislation. Senator Stargel's bill is highly important to the state of Florida, and I encourage the Cabinet to enact this law. 24 states in the U.S. have tried and passed legislation that mandates parental consent for minors wishing to receive an abortion. As someone that believes in equal rights for parents, I cannot stress how important this legislation is. As has been stated, minors must have parental consent prior to getting a piercing or a tattoo, much less any surgical procedure. That's what an abortion is, a surgical procedure. This bill is neither pro-life or pro-choice. It is pro-equal rights. It is in the best interest of the minor, parent, or any other party involved. Parents have to consent for their minor to have any other surgical procedure, and this should logically be no exception. Thank you, and I yield my time to the Cabinet.
Thank you. I'll now recognize the Director wishing to speak in opposition to this legislation. Director, can you please speak first, speak as well? You're recognized.
According to the ACLU, there's no evidence that mandating parental involvement actually increases the rate at which teens tell their parents about their pregnancies and planned abortions. As Mrs. Newman had asked earlier what the statistics were, there were statistics on the increase of illegal abortions, there was a 28% increase in states, in one of the 24 states that have recognized it, and that's only in the girls that were, that said that they had an illegal abortion. So who knows how many there actually were. According to the ACLU, there's also no state that requires a young woman to obtain parental consent for prenatal care and delivery of her child. So why should they be able to say that she can or cannot have an abortion when they cannot say whether or not she can or cannot obtain prenatal care? They also, no state requires parents to be notified of their daughter's positive pregnancy test. So she never has to inform that she has become pregnant. According to the APA, the American Psychological Association, there's a disproportionate number of young adolescents who become pregnant that live in severely unstable families, and 3% of molestation and rape victims that have become pregnant by someone within their family, and that could possibly be within their immediate family, which would be whoever was giving consent to the abortion. So if they're already being victimized by these people, how would they feel needing to have consent to whether or not to have a child? In the state of Florida, the age of consent is 16 years old, which would be considered a minor and which would need to have consent if the parent of this legislation passed. This means that if a child is old enough to decide to have sex, old enough to just decide to receive contraceptives, and they become pregnant, that has been their choice, and they are now becoming a parent. So I believe that this legislation should not pass for these reasons stated above, and I reserve my remainder of time.
Thank you. Author, you're now recognized for your closing statement.
I want to respond to 2 points that Mrs. Kolishi has stated. One of them being about legal abortions. Yes, I understand that they have done the study, but you can't really know exactly how the statistics work because, as we've stated, illegal abortions are illegal abortions, therefore they're not tracked. So we can't know if there's an increase. And there might be an increase, I don't know, none of us can know. But if so many people said it this time and so many people said it this time, we can't know if that really is an increase because not everyone has to fess up. Another thing that I want to point out is how that if somebody, like the molestation situations, if they want to go, they can go to the judicial bypass. But the other thing I wanted to point out was, I can't remember. So, in 2005, about 14,500 minors got abortions in the state of Florida, 500 which are girls under 13 years of age. There are 900,000 girls aged 10 to 17 living in the state. Florida is ranked second in the nation for abortion rate. This bill is the utmost important to Floridians, not just the girls, but their parents and families too. It has the potential to affect almost 1 million girls, and that's just this generation. This bill will not be a hassle to put into effect. It's just a mere change in the law, nothing more. I know abortions can be a heated debate topic, but this is about whether you're pro-life or pro-choice. It's just worth protecting the lives and minds of 15,000 girls who get abortion. And I just remember the point that I wanted to go back to earlier, was the point how she said how whenever the age of consent, I feel like it's your decision to make. There's people that help, there's adoption, there's other things that can help you after you have the child. So if you want to have sex and you do get pregnant, the abortion has a lot of medical risks. If there are medical risks for giving birth, but there's doctors that have emergency procedures, and we have tons of laws in Florida that give rights to those girls that are in danger. So I feel like pregnancy or having the birth is a safer option for the girls that are younger because they have more rights in that situation. And this is just helping the girls who rights rather than, well, yes, I'll just end with that. And I yield my time to Kathy.
Thank you. The cabinet will now proceed into a closed period of deliberation. Will all visitors please exit through the doors in the back.